So a little starter to get us going, and also a little bit of a recap from the last session. Either individually or with a partner, can you identify the difference between, firstly, quantitative and qualitative data? Secondly, then, can you provide some examples of maybe potential methods of data collection for both quantitative data and or qualitative data? And finally, are there some methods that you think actually would work for both? And if so, how could they be used? So hopefully you're able to identify a couple of methods for both quantitative and qualitative data. The next few slides provide more detail on some of those methods. So have a look at them, read through the slides, have a think about how they may relate to your project, to your aims and objectives. They are categorized actually into both primary data and secondary data, and obviously the difference between the two is that the primary sources of data are sources that you're going to get yourself, and the secondary data is data that already exists and you're going to use it as part of your project. So in the slide that you can see, there are a number of different aims linked to previous projects that students have completed. What I'd like you to do is for each of the aims to come up with what you feel will be the best research method or methods for each of those aims. Once you've done that, if you're watching the video, there'll be audio files that will go through each of them explaining the methods, so you can compare to see what you've got. If you're using a PowerPoint, if you just click on the little icon for each one individually, it will then bring up the same audio file. So with this aim, you can see that this is related to opinions. It's for something that students can relate to within school, particularly Key Stage 4 students, because they're going through this experience. So for this, you'll be able to access those students themselves. Something that you might consider is a focus group, where you get a few students, probably around about between 8 and 10, and then actually you have a number of key questions that you'll discuss, and you'll record those views together as a group. It might also be that a questionnaire has a couple of questions that you ask students to complete, allowing for them to then provide their viewpoints and opinions, and that of course would be a qualitative data collection as opposed to quantitative questions, data collections on that questionnaire. So for anything that requires you to look at data over a significant period of time or number of years, you're more than likely going to be going to internet research, secondary research, see what's already out there, see what data you can get, particularly when it comes to things like quantitative data that deals with statistics and numbers over that period of the year or years. If that's not available, then you might need to go to experts who maybe work in that field, who may be able to provide you with further information to support that particular aim. So this is a clear example of you actually having to go out and collecting the data yourself. This could be in the form of something like notational analysis, where actually you will go to the area that you need to conduct the research and sit there. So for this example, between 8 AM and 9:30 AM, for that period of time, then you would actually create a tally chart. You would look at the number of vehicles that are going between those time scales. And also then you divide it up into the types of vehicles that would be travelling across the bridge at that time. So for something like this, which requires specific expertise in the area that you're looking at, it's unlikely that you're going to go to a number of friends or peers within school. They may have a little bit of a viewpoint on whether NASA should continue their funding of Mars exploration. However, it's probably going to be limited and won't be supported by any facts or statistics that really do back up what they're saying. This is an example of where you would more than likely want to go to a professional, an expert within that field, someone maybe who teaches in a science, or someone that lectures, or even then someone who is involved in actually that field of work that you can email, that you can contact to try and get some information on their viewpoints on this particular topic. So this is an example where you might want to set up another focus group, and then you can ask questions around the works of a particular artist, whether that's a musician, a painter in this example. What you could actually do is set up and have images of the works by the particular artist, and actually ask for people's opinions. What do they like about it? What do you think the artist is trying to convey by what they're showing there? Are there any differences, things that you can contrast or compare, and to get viewpoints around people, from people around a specific subject. This is an example of where you might want to go to people who've directly experienced the issue or the topic that you're looking at. For example, NHS workers in hospitals over the last few months. This is something that you do need to be a little bit careful of, and aware that it's a very sensitive, or can potentially be a sensitive issue, that you would need to get permission and to explain the types of questions that you may be asking as part of it, just to make sure that if you are interviewing someone, for example, or providing a questionnaire, that they know what that entails, and that they're comfortable in answering the questions that you want them to answer. So for a name or a topic like this, you're more than likely going to go to secondary research, stuff that's already exists, that's already been written about. It's very unlikely that you're going to find anything new in regards to why Hitler came to power in Germany in the 1930s that hasn't already been written. So things that will be covered, things like the weaknesses of the Weimar Republic, Hitler's personality himself, the social and economic situation of Germany at the time, they're all going to be covered, but it's still data that you will use then, and then you'll be doing something that you'll be able to form your own opinion from the vast number of sources that you may be able to get in relation to this. So this is an example where you'll use data that already exists. So for example, there may be statistics about the success rate of footballers taking penalties in the Premier League, whether they score or not. You might get that statistics already. What it doesn't then necessarily tell you about is the technique that's used. So what you would do then is to do your own primary research using the videos that already exist, or footage of those penalty kicks. What you would do then is to compare the technique used. So for example, how many use the inside of the foot, how many use power when it comes to hitting the ball, striking the ball for a penalty. And then you would be able to then come up with your own new set of data from information, in this case footage, that already exists. So the table you can see and the table on the next slide are really good ways that you can start to record down your methods, but also to begin to justify why you're going to use them, or why you may not want to use that particular method. That will help then hit some of the assessment criteria, which is LO2 in this instance. So you should be in a position now to write fully your rationale for research methods. It is written in paragraph format, or paragraphs. It does need to be descriptive to say what you're going to be doing, but the most important thing is to justify why you're going to be doing it. That justification will enable you to get the highest marks that you should be looking at when it comes to the assessment criteria. So things about why are you choosing that method, what things do you need to consider about that method, what are the advantages, what are the potential disadvantages, and how might you overcome those disadvantages of using particular methods. Once you've written all that, use some of the tables that we showed you earlier to put in to support it. They can go in with the rationale, or they could be kept separately in the appendix at the end if you want to. It's up to you. We'll shortly be breaking for the summer holidays, and that gives you an opportunity to carry out some of the research over those number of weeks. Clearly you can do some secondary research, internet-based research, but also you might want to undertake some of the primary research that can sometimes take a little bit longer to do. So things like any notational analysis, any surveys. If you are thinking of interviewing people, that's a great opportunity to do that then. It may require to email people for information, so you can do all this over that period of time to help you get that data as soon as possible. Once you've got all that data, obviously then you can start the main body, the main writing of your individual project.